All right, so now that I got a machine that works well enough, we're going to do basic dynamic analysis. So we're going to need to get this thing called key.7zip and extract it, and I've already done that. And usually you start with static analysis, even when you're going to end up doing dynamic analysis. We're going to use PEView, and we're going to see some functions here. All right, and I don't really think it's worth opening PEView. You just see some of the functions it calls, but nothing too meaningful. Here's bin text, and here there are some useful things. Let's take a look at bin text on that key.exe. So that would be here. There we are. I've already got the key.exe. Let's run bin text again. All right. And I think I put it in my downloads folder. Key.exe, there we are. All right. So go, make it big. All right. So here's the stuff you normally see. Here's a bunch of random junk that just happens to be readable, but it's not a meaningful string. And there's some messages. Create symbolic link, a lot of strings in here. We just scan through here looking for stuff. These are Windows API calls. There's a lot of them. Oh, there was something interesting. There was a path, cwindows vmx32to64.exe. That looks like a file that is either opened or created by the malware. This is looking like a driver or something, 32 to 64. I think that is, and here's something called log.txt and something called key.exe. So I found a couple file names that appear to be used by it, and another file that might be used by it. So those are somewhat interesting clues that those objects, those files appear to be being used. And I think that's all we need to get out of this one. Let's see. Yep, those are the big ones. All right, so there's some things. By the way, if you go back up there, you'll actually find a really obvious thing here. You shift, right-click, caps lock, up arrow, down arrow. This is a keylogger. That's what all those strings are. And it wouldn't have those strings otherwise. So it's recording your key presses and writing them down. That's why the strings are so useful. I mean, so now you know this thing is apparently a keylogger, going to record key presses, so that's interesting. So let's see it go. So we're going to run Process Explorer, Wireshark, and Process Monitor. So Process Explorer is easy. That just runs. We don't need to configure it. So we're done with bin text, and we'll run Process Explorer. It should close bin text. There we go. And now Process Explorer. There it is. All right. And so Process Explorer just runs and shows me what's in the machine. And this is worth taking a look at because it helps you understand what Windows does. It shows you every process in the order it was launched. So if I go here, the first thing is you boot up the machine, it opens up the registry, it launches the system, then it launches Windows with WinInit, then it launches services. Now the services run before you log in, doing things, and all these are services, all indented here, running all kinds of things. And one thing that always puzzled me before was I would see many instances of SVC host. And we'll see it if I can scroll down a bit here. There we go. There's dill host. Here's some SVC hosts. I always wondered when I looked at Task Manager, why are there all those SVC host processes? And in Process Explorer, you can tell. So when it's done scrolling, I will show you. Okay, if you hover over one of these, whenever it's done scrolling, all right. All right. If you hover over one of these, it will pop up a box telling you what it does. There's its path, there's the services. This is the AppX deployment service. Each one of those SVC host things is running a couple of services. This one here is running Microsoft Store install service. This one is running Security Center and so on. And some of them are running a bunch of things. That's why I have many copies of the same executable. And all of them run before you log in, so almost all of them run with system privileges. Because you have, now after all the services launch, then you go to Windows Logon. That's where you log on. And after that, After you log in, then it launches Explorer. Explorer is the process that draws the start button in the desktop, and everything that you launch is a child of Explorer. So this is when you moved from system kernel land, essentially, system processes, mostly, not all kernel, but running with high privileges, to user land. Everything down here is a child of me, Firefox and these others, and you can see, I think my machine is so laggy, Firefox is a hog with all these processes. Anyway, here's some nonsense like OneDrive and such. All right, anyway, Java, checker, and all that jazz. That's what you see in Process Explorer. You see a nice map of what's actually on the machine. All right, let me go back to my instructions. So we got Process Explorer. Now we're going to run Wireshark. All right, let's do that and start it sniffing. There's Wireshark. All right. I don't care about your updates. And there's the one with traffic on it, Ethernet 0. So I can start sniffing on that one. I think I'll wait and start a little bit later, unless we have a good filter. Okay, we're going to have a lot of other traffic. That's what I'm worried about. I'm remotely controlling it over the internet, so I'm getting a lot of traffic. So I'm going to put in not traffic that is not going to my address. My host machine. This is a good point. Okay. All right. I don't know if I'm going to be successful in filtering that out. I'm not going to worry about it right now. We may not use Wireshark tonight. We'll see. Process Monitor is more important. Let's get Process Monitor going. All right, there's Process Monitor. And I want to run it. And agree to whatever. All right. And see, it's already 145 events, 161,000, 241,000, thousands and thousands of events are going by, all sorts of things happening. And I'm not doing the interesting stuff yet, so I want to stop it. And that's here. They moved it over. That's fine. All right, where's the stop button? Right, they've changed it. Close, clear, auto scroll, filter, highlight, include. All right, where have they hidden the stop button? Event properties, jump. Right. Well.
You just go clear, probably clear all the stuff.
Well, clear, I think we'll just take it off the screen, but it'll still be, it's still picking them all up. There's some way to stop it. It used to be the magnifying glass that stopped it. No, I'm not. Capture, there we are. It's this empty thing. Okay. There, that's what stopped it, I think. All right, they've changed it, which is good because I hated the magnifying glass being what stopped and started it anyway. All right, now I should be able to clear it and it should stay clear. Okay, now we're in business. All right, so let's see if I can overcome this issue with Wireshark before we continue. Because what I'd like to do, I remember how we're doing it here, since I'm remotely controlling a machine, and this will happen to students that use cloud machines, I don't want to get the traffic going to my machine here. So I'd like to find that. So let's start sniffing. And there should be a bunch of traffic associated with me controlling it. And I am surprised that I do not see it. Perhaps I'm sniffing on the wrong adapter, because I'm definitely controlling this machine over the internet. Although I'm not connecting directly to it. Because I'm using Proxmox, I guess that's okay. It's not a network traffic that it's seeing. All right. Anyway, so this is not bad. I'll just let Wireshark run. I don't need to figure out how to filter out RDP traffic because I'm not connecting directly to it with RDP. All right, and now let's go back to my instructions. So we got Wireshark. Now we're going to run Process Monitor, and we could exclude harmless processes. And I guess I'll do it that way. This is the more annoying process, but I'll give it a shot. All right, so to remove the existing processes, you start sniffing, and now remove everything. So you have process names, so I can exclude this process name, exclude search indexer. Now I can exclude this. This is the most professional way to do it, by the way. This is the way I always used to do it when I was more careful and less sloppy. These are all things running before the malware. So I don't want any of them, so I just exclude them all. And there's like 30 of them, so it can be a little tedious. But this is the most precise thing to do. All right, exclude Wireshark, exclude this Microsoft thing, exclude this thing. More Microsoft stuff. All right.
How do you know what to exclude?
Everything, because I'm not running the malware. So anything that's running now should be excluded.
And there's got to be a simpler way.
The one simple way is to filter just for the name of the malware. That's another way to do it. But that's less precise, right? Because the malware launched multiple processes with different names. And there might be some faster way to do this. By the way, this is, if the malware launched a process with one of these names, I wouldn't see it. So like I say, nothing is ever perfect. All right. Now, I don't like, okay, that's getting pretty bad. I think I'm going to stop it and clear my memory because I think it's starting to run pretty slow on me. Clear. Okay. Start sniffing again. All right. Exclude that. SVC host, SIL host, I don't know what that is, but these are all Windows processes. All right, hopefully I can get to the end of it here. If I get annoyed with this enough, I'll just do it the other way, where I look for things named key. Thought I already did this one. There, okay, oh, we're nearly there. Okay, good. We're doing it the perfect way, or the more perfect way. There we go. There, now it's monitoring thousands of events, but you don't see any of them because they're all not coming from the malware. Now I run the malware as administrator, and we should see some goodies. So I go to my downloads folder, and I run key.exe as administrator. There it is. All right. And now, if I look at process monitor, here's all the good things it did, and now I'm going to stop sniffing. So I have seen it, it has read a file, it has done a bunch of registry operations and so on. Let me see if my instructions are going to help me. Now we can scroll until you get to key.exe, and now you can see what it does. So let's try that. Here's Start Menu, which is stuff it did as part of launching the malware, but not very interesting. And someplace down here there was key.exe. This was where I agreed, I think, to give it administrator rights, consent.exe. And someplace down here will be key.exe. Win API. So many things even coming through. That's why it's annoying. Let's see, now what I'm looking for is this key.exe stuff. So I think I'm going to make a filter just to see it, like I would have done before. This is the other way to do it. I can add a filter, and it's going to be process name contains key. There we are. Now I'm seeing what key did. Here we are. So it read ntdil, it read this VMX32-4, and so on. It did various things here. It opened registry keys. Now I can see what it did. It wrote a file here, All right. We can see the steps it's doing. So it creates an executable file in the Windows directory. Query information, create file, VMX32. We should be able to see that. Close file, create file, see Windows. Here it is, query, read file. Someplace it's going to create that file. Okay, there's more of it up here. That's why I'm not looking at the start of it. Okay, so here we go. Create file, see Windows, create file. Anyway, down here, here's where it created the file called conhost, or it tried to. And it's going to create that VMX32 someplace. I use my stored image here. It creates an executable file in the Windows directory, see Windows VMX32 to 64, and then it creates persistence by modifying a registry key for the current user. And there's a flag here you can find where it creates the run key. Run keys are typically how you obtain persistence. A run key in the registry will automatically launch this file every time you boot the machine. That's a common, so it created this file and it's going to run it every time you reboot. So that's the thing there. Now we're going to use the keylogger. It is a keylogger. And so we're going to type in some text. And we'll see it happen. Yep, okay. So
In order for it to run every time you turn it on, does it have to be in the kernel?
no, it runs in userland. It could be in either userland or the kernel. But if it runs in userland, it uses kernel API calls just like every other process. So now I'm going to run Notepad. Oops, got to spell it better. All right. And then put in some messages like hello. All right, now I've typed some stuff. Now it's going to create a log in the same folder. Remember, the log.txt is one of the strings we saw. So it's going to create that in here. Log.txt. Created right now. If I open that, it's got my stuff in there. Shift. It looks like it didn't do a very good job. It missed some letters. It's not a very effective keylogger. It's a little bit fouled up. You see, it is capturing my keystrokes and creating that log file. So that's good. Now we can look at the persistence mechanism. If we kill key.exe, it'll stop and it'll restart at the next reboot, which I don't think I'll bother demonstrating, but you can see it. You can kill it here. If you reboot it, it'll just come back. It'll run key.exe again. And then you can remove it by just removing that path if you delete the registry key in regedit. And let's take a look at that in case you're not familiar with that. HKey current user software. So to view the registry, you use regedit. By the way, I'm going to stop Wireshark. It's going to just waste a lot of RAM if I leave it running. All right, so regedit. All right. And so there's a few run keys. Let's find the one where this is. It is HKey current user software, Microsoft. Okay. You get used to navigating the registry. The registry is a pretty big, complicated mess. HKey current user software. And when I first started using the registry, it seemed very complicated. You get used to it. Microsoft Windows current version run. Microsoft Windows current version, and down here is going to be a run. There we are, run. There we are, and there it is. See Windows VMX32 to 64. The presence of this means it'll launch every time it starts. So if I don't want it to relaunch every time, I can just delete this key. Delete. By the way, it's not kidding about that warning. You can trash your machine messing with the registry. And the registry is live all the time. It's like opening a car while the engine is running and reaching in with a wrench. It's not saved somewhere. So anyway, if you delete random stuff in the registry or change permissions, you can make your machine unbootable. However, that was the right thing to delete, so I didn't break anything. That just means next time it won't restart. And Now, we
But
should,
If you do that in your virtual machine, it's fine.
that's why you use a virtual machine. Well, if you do, you might wreck your virtual machine, but then you could just, put a fresh one. That's why, yep. That's why you don't want to use a virtual machine, because there's many things you can hurt your machine with what we're doing here. You're running the malware, you're running these crazy tools, yeah. And so there should be some DNS traffic created by that sample. Oh, you had to run a different sample. This sample didn't do any networking, but I have another one that does make networking, and then you'll find something in Wireshark. So there's a few, yep, I put various versions of this keylogger. This keylogger was originally from the textbook, and it didn't run on modern versions of Windows, so I rewrote it and I made versions of it. Have fun things in there, flags to find. So anyway, there's various flags to find here, and that's what simple dynamic analysis is like. Like I say, it's pretty fun. All right, so let me stop the recording and then see if I can answer some questions.